you a fan of this podcast? Do you wish there was even more juicy content for you to sink your ears into? Well, there is. You can become a premium member of this podcast for $5.99 a month and get full access to an archive of over 50 bonus episodes. Additionally, we release a bonus episode every single month. That's a ton of extra content, including my personal interior design diaries, extra tips, my talking about trends, and so much more. Additionally, you'll be keeping us on the airwaves each and every week because your premium membership money goes directly back to making this podcast amazing. Check us out at affordableinteriordesign.com. Click on podcast to learn more and to become a premium member today.
Hello, this is not Betsy. This is Catherine, Betsy's producer. Betsy's going to be taking a little time off, just a few weeks, and she will be back with new episodes for you. So for now, please enjoy this best of episode.
You don't need a high-end designer or a lot of money to get a luxe look. Be your own interior designer with big design, small budget. Here's your host, Betsy Helmuth.
I am so excited to be joined by my guest this week, Susan Simpson. Now, if the name doesn't ring a bell, I'm sure the voice will, because I am such a huge fan of Susan Simpson's. Many of you may know Serial, the case with Adnan Syed that not only really got me super intrigued in the justice system, but also began my love for podcasts. I had never listened to a podcast before that. And as soon as I finished listening to that, I was like, more podcasts, please. Then I started my podcast. Well, Susan was also listening to Serial. And she is an attorney who, you know, you can tell better than I can, but you started a blog. That blog got recognized by Adnan's aunt of sorts.
Auntie.
Yes, auntie, exactly. And now you have become one of the most famous lawyers I know. And that's not saying too much considering I don't know too many lawyers, but
Hey, I'll take it.
But you're amazing. And I am in such awe of what you have done for the Adnan Syed case and for what you are doing to exonerate people who are falsely imprisoned anyway. So I'm going to stop fangirling and I'm going to let you take over and tell us about yourself, Susan.
Yeah, well, like you, after the Serial, I somehow ended up in my own podcast. I do Undisclosed with Rabia, who is the sister of Adnan's best friend, and Colin Miller, who is a law professor in South Carolina. And after we covered Adnan's case, we've been covering other wrongful convictions ever since. And as part of that, I ended up doing a panel at a CrimeCon, last year?
Yeah.
Yeah. And ran into Betsy.
So So after her panel, I went into the hallway and there she was, like some kind of celebrity just standing there. I think she was talking to Colin. And, you know, the thing about Susan that I think is so fabulous is that, is this your superpower? I'm not sure. Combing through the minutia, the details of the case to find those little snafus, to find those issues that were truly pivotal in cracking open some of the holes in this case.
Yeah, that's so often with wrongful convictions, you just have detectives who are they're not intentionally doing wrong. What they're doing is they've decided on the case already. They've decided who their suspect is, and they go forward on that theory, which means there's a lot of stuff they've overlooked along the way. And that has been something I focus on in my work on these cases, is to figure out, one, how they're convicted, and two, where's the evidence that shows that this did not go down the way the state's claiming it did.
Well, and that big one, the AT&T cover letter. So guys, if you were ever fans of the Adnan Syed podcast Serial, you've got to listen to the first season of Undisclosed, where they find the issue of the AT&T cover letter. For those of us who are fans of the case and follow it and really care deeply, I think that was the moment my jaw dropped when I was listening to Undisclosed the first season.
Well, what is definitely not one of my superpowers is design and art. to put it kindly.
Perfect segue, Susan. So yes, so I ran into you at CrimeCon. I was so excited. I felt so grateful that you had combed through hours and hours of work on this case pro bono, just because you were interested and you believed in his innocence. And I was just like, what can I give back to this woman who has done so much for someone she didn't know? So I was like, well, my only superpower is picking out pillows. Maybe I can do that for Susan. Maybe she needs pillows. So I said, Susan, I would love to offer you a complimentary virtual design package because I'm just so in awe of everything that you've done to further his case. And luckily you took me up on it because I really want to give back. And it's the limited way I know how. And
it turns out, I did not know it, but I extremely needed your services because, I mean, I've made it this far in my life somehow until recently, like never actually having to make any furniture purchases that count. I mean, I've got the Craigslist stuff. I've got like, oh my God, I need a table. Go to Craigslist, get one and be done. But until like, 2 months ago, I'd never actually intentionally purchased furniture like as part of the plan. We also just moved. It's part of it. I've been in a 1-bedroom place. I had my grandparents' furniture actually that I inherited. And we moved to a new place and suddenly the couch I hated had to go and we had all this room. So I was like, Betsy, help me out.
Well, and I think this is a really common scenario. I mean, you are a successful professional. You are a ninja in your own field, and yet you're living in a space that feels a little dormtastic or like everything was kind of found objet. Nothing feels cohesive. Why is this? And I see it so many times with my clients. So you are not alone. Don't feel bad. But it is time to start adulting. Adulting.
I have, spoiler, I now have an adult space and it makes me so happy to have a place that's actually not dormtastic.
I love it.
Yeah, I am way too late in life to finally hit that milestone, but I'm glad I'm here.
So you live in an apartment in Washington, D.C., and we did the virtual package. But, even after people have worked with us, even after they've gotten the high-level concepts, they've gotten all those main pieces, they put them in just the right place, which you have done, and that is no easy feat. There are still some lingering questions. So you had some lingering questions, and I can't remember which of us said, let's solve them on the podcast, these design crimes. Let's solve them together, Susan.
Yes, there's currently, it's less of a design crime than was before, but there's one remaining spot that's a bit suspect.
There's a few minor infractions. Yes. I think you see some and I see a couple. Let's start.
I'm sure there's tons of stuff I'm not seeing. And I know there's a couple things that I know are breaking your rules. Sorry, Betsy. I did it anyway.
Well,
I will say, okay, do I get credit though for like mostly following the rules? I feel like I do.
Well, I think it is very difficult. I give clients design plans all the time. And, it's easy to prescribe the different ingredients. Easy to say, buy this, buy that, get this, put it here. But it is actually hard to make it happen, to open every box, to unroll the carpet, to put the rug pad down, to make sure that the credenza didn't have a scratch and then return it.
Oh my God, that Pottery Barn. I'm still fighting Pottery Barn. They didn't give me the full lamp. And I don't even know what to do at this point. I've given up. I jury rigged it. So I think that's kind of how that lamp's going to be from now on.
Well, yeah, you have to fight tooth and nail to actually get it done. And people don't realize, that's how we stay affordable and stay nimble is because we only execute 10% of the designs we create. The other 90%, the clients have to execute. And that's where those little questions come up. So I'm so glad that you wrote me and I can't wait to tackle these. What's the most pressing question? I'm sitting here staring at your beautiful space featuring peacock blues and mustard yellows with gray and walnut tones. So what can we fix here?
So I guess the starter one is that table. So you picked out a coffee table that I did love, but it was not going to get delivered for a long time. It actually came in last week. So it's here now. But in the meantime, past 2 months, I need a coffee table. So I got one for $100 on Craigslist and I've kind of fallen in love with it. So
Well, let's talk about it. Okay.
So what's wrong with it?
I'm glad one of us has fallen in love with it because it's a little, from what I can see, I'm just working off of pictures. It's a little bit high for the sofa. Typically, the coffee table would be within 2 inches of the height of the seat of the sofa. This looks a little bit higher than that. I typically like it when the coffee table is at the same height or a little bit lower than the seat of the sofa. Also, you mentioned in your email that you thought it was good feng shui that you had now incorporated glass because
I was kidding because I was failing that test before. So I'm like, at least it passes that test.
And you're close but no cigar. Because you're right in that every room should incorporate all the major elements: wood, stone, metal, glass. But with a coffee table and a glass coffee table that is, it looks like square or rectilinear on a white pedestal base, it's actually not great feng shui if you're entertaining, because when you're putting a glass down, a cup down, the noise that it makes is kind of frightening. And so you have a hard time relaxing. That's the same reason why, according to feng shui, they don't like you to have glass dining tables. So when you put your silverware down, when you put the cup down, each time it's making this noise that makes you feel less zen.
Interesting.
Also, I happen to know from working together, you filled out my design style questionnaire and gave me a little intel into what you like to do, and you love to craft. And this coffee table has no storage. I mean, I do love the fact that you could spritz it off with Windex or whatever. So if you got Mod Podge
that's
on
actually
it.
pretty nice.
Yeah, so that is a nice bonus, but it's not going to store, that yarn, those collage magazines, whatever.
So I realized actually the way I operate, I'll tend to leave stuff there for overnight. So I kind of like having that because now I don't have to move everything to get underneath there to get the storage stuff. Plus, actually, with what you've done, I've got a shit ton of storage for once in my life.
Oh, good.
So I'm not really feeling a need there, which is definitely the first time I've ever had to say that.
Well, I think I could be okay with this coffee table. It's just the height that's really bugging me. It's the height. Yeah. All right. Well,
I will look around some more and debate which one to put there. But it's a good point about the height.
It's so stylish. I mean, there is a reason they were. I do see now kind of this gold inlay.
It's got brass inlay on it and this marble underneath. So I was like, there's brass and marble elsewhere in the room. Let's go with that.
Well, I'm not hating it. But
it's just not quite correct.
It's not quite right. Yeah. And you had mentioned that now that you put it all together, because the coffee table I had recommended was circular, you'd mentioned that maybe you think a circular wouldn't be as ideal now that you've gotten it in the space. But I would just, what we had to do for your space, because it was so large, which is an awesome problem to have, is we had to float that sofa. We had to take it off the wall and move it more essentially into the space. And when we did that, you get to choose how far the sofa is from the TV, and you have wiggle room to scoot that back a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'm going to, that brings to the next question, which is the wall behind the floating couch and the credenza.
That's right. So when you're floating a couch into the center of the space, you are left with negative space behind the couch that you need to do something with. Now, you don't always have to have a sofa table to conceal the back of the sofa, but a lot of people do choose that. And for you, we gave you a credenza.
I like mine, yeah. I love that one, so...
We gave you a credenza that you can use in lots of different locations in different spaces, whether it would be a future TV stand, a future buffet for a dining area, or even a future entry console. But in this case, it can be storage for your crafts, it can hold some books, and it can fill some of that negative space behind the sofa. But you were mentioning that there's still too much negative
wall,
space.
Right? Am I wrong about that?
Well, one of the things that you had circled, which is very helpful here in your picture, is you'd circled some... eyesores.
I don't even know what the hell is going on there. It's 4 or 5 patched up former I don't even know what they are, but they're there. They're hanging out.
A whole bunch of archaic outlets, right? Maybe one is an old phone jack, maybe one is an old cable hookup, but we're not even putting the TV there, and it's not an organic place to put anything else in terms of a TV, and you have no functional need for it. So that negative space behind the sofa, we do have the sofa table / console behind there, but then we have a good 5-foot swath before we hit that wall that has the weird outlets. And there's no real function we can put back there. You have a separate dining area, and plus it would be pretty tight. Mm-hmm. It is in a walkway because you have a patio with a sliding door also behind there, so we don't want to gum up that walkway.
Yeah, and we do use that space actually. So I don't want I like having the space there. It's just I want that blank spot covered up.
So it's real okay, because I was misunderstanding then. So basically, you just want to cover up those outlets. What do you use that space for? Is that for yoga? What are you doing back there?
I mean, the cats like to hang out there. The cats get treats there. They do tricks there. It's just kind of a big empty space where we can move around.
That's right. For those of you who don't listen to Undisclosed, Rabia and Susan are cat ladies, and they love their cats. And cats definitely feature prominently in these after pictures, which I love. Pets are the best accessory, followed closely by plants. So yes.
So plants, though, that was my kind of fallback idea. If I just put plants there, is that like breaking any rules?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Functionally, there's nothing to really put back there. You had put a bench back there, and I think that's interesting.
That was just to block it.
If you were coming in from that patio door with umbrellas, if people were taking off their shoes, if somebody was actually going to sit there to do something. Otherwise, I wouldn't just put a bench to block it.
Yeah.
And I do like the idea of doing some kind of plant stand that's maybe more elongated, because I can see you have plants and planters sprinkled throughout the room.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe something with smaller plants that's kind of a plant stand that is 3 to 4 feet wide.
Huh, interesting.
And then could have varying heights. It kind of fits with your mid-century style to do something retro like that. Mm-hmm. And there's really good ones. West Elm used to have some really good ones. I also love Grandin Road for their plant stands. And IKEA, believe it or not, has some good elongated multi-pot plant stands.
Well, that would be about perfect. So I've got a bunch of little plants hanging out elsewhere that don't have a home right now. I was thinking bigger plants there, but if it's little ones, I mean, I've got some like little aloe plants and whatnot. And there's so much light there
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and contrast is king. You've already used several mid-sized plants. I can see 3 just in a couple of these pictures. And we don't want to continue more mid-sized plants because we've already checked that box, right? So
like
now
go for giant-sized plants.
That's right. But
Yes.
that area, the other thing you want to think about is that area is quite rectilinear. And a giant-sized plant is typically circular.
Yeah.
And so this is a rectilinear space that needs a rectilinear solution. And that's why I'm recommending that horizontal plant stand that's elongated to better fill the space.
The wall stuff isn't very high, so it wouldn't need to be very high to cover that up either.
That's right. Those outlets are at outlet height. It will be easy to mask those with a type of plant stand.
Well, that is perfect. So I will be doing that.
And now it's time for a quick commercial break.
Do you love this podcast? Do you wish you could learn even more? Well, we have an online class bundle. Our online class bundle is comprised of 3 online classes: beautifying your home for less, styling your home, and the fundamentals of Feng Shui. Each one of those 3 classes is between 30 and 45 minutes long and chock-filled with visuals and tips, things that will help you to style your own space or help out with other spaces. Additionally, with the pack of 3 classes, you get an autographed copy of my book, Affordable Interior Design. You get all of that for only $99. Once again, that's the 3 online classes as well as the book for only $99. You just go to affordableinteriordesign.com/classes. Once again, affordableinteriordesign.com/classes to buy your bundle today. And if one of those classes sounded intriguing, but maybe you already have my book or some of the other topics are not of interest, you can buy the classes individually at that site as well. Each class is $40. So head over to affordableinteriordesign.com/classes to get your bundle or your online class today.
Now, while we're talking about heights, this was the main offender. When I saw these pictures, I wanted to give you 2 thumbs up. I wanted to give you a standing ovation because you also did the transformation very quickly. But your art heights are crazy. Like, what's going on?
I knew that. So the one, we'll start with the one on that blank wall. Where should that one be?
So above the outlets, you have hung a picture of a bird. And I love how it works well with the colors in the room. I love the size. It's pretty big, but it needs to be from the floor to the center of the piece 60 inches because it's not above a piece of furniture. So you want to hang it at museum height, optimum height for everyone to see best. And in the United States, from the floor to the center of the piece, it should be 60 inches because
so it's too high?
It's way too high. Oh my gosh.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And your other picture.
So the other one is there for a reason. And it's because there's a big old square splotch that they didn't paint for some reason.
All right. Well, now It's kind of like when you get a zit, but you've got a date or something. And so you cover the zit with a Band-Aid.
That's exactly what a thing is.
You're covering your zit with a big old Band-Aid. And I'm actually seeing the zit more now. Yeah. I would remove the Band-Aid because it's really high. I mean, that one's like, 6 inches off the ceiling?
Yeah.
And I think I'm being generous. It's freakish.
The top part of it's covering that big square splotch of like dark gray. So that's what it's absolutely a Band-Aid. And I knew you wouldn't like that.
Yeah, I don't. And what I could see, because that other picture, I'm just guesstimating, but I'm guesstimating that these are 30 by 40 inches horizontal. They're both subject matter birds looking at prey. But they're really cool. And I love that they work well with the palette. I would see putting them on a diagonal on that wall above the outlets, because that one picture is really not big enough.
Okay.
To service that entire wall. So I think a diagonal would be more appropriate. And people ask me, Betsy, which one goes lower or which one goes higher? So generally when you enter a room, you want your eye to step up. So the lower pieces would be first on the approach, and the higher pieces would be oriented towards as you're walking in the room.
So do you mean like directly diagonal, like overlapping diagonal, or like...
Well, I think these would be side by side. One would not be above the other because they're both pretty big. It looks like the white bird is slightly bigger than the...
No, same size.
Same size. Okay. Just different perspectives on the pictures. Yeah, so I would tend to do them side by side, but have the blue bird slightly higher than the white bird. And the reason I did it that way, let me just circle back here, is because the white bird, even though it's white, the background is very dark. It's darker, which means it's visually heavier, right, than the blue bird that has the light background. So the lighter toned background feels like a lighter piece in general, which makes it feel more organic to put it up higher. So
what do I do with that zit?
You're going to have to paint that zit. That's right.
God, and how do I know what paint it's a rental, so I don't actually even know what paint's supposed to go there.
Well, the paint has faded over time, so it doesn't actually matter what color paint they used, because it will still look like a patch job if you bring in that same can of Albescent from Benjamin Moore. What I'd like you to do is go to the Benjamin Moore store, and that's where most people buy their paint, so chances are they got it there anyway, and pick some paint swatches, those long cards that will show you several different tones that you think are in the right family, and try to get as close as possible. Then what I would recommend is that you not just paint that little patch, or it might be a big patch. I can't tell because that's a big bird.
Yeah.
It's
like
Band-Aid.
Maybe almost a foot each way.
Yeah. But I would recommend painting that entire wall. Because even if it is a little bit off from the other walls,
you couldn't tell from it's just that patch.
That's right. So that's going to be a 4-hour job, maybe 3. But then you won't see the patch. You won't have the freakishly high flying bird. And, when you are seated on your couch, that's kind of the direction you're looking in. Unfortunately, it is getting a lot of attention.
Yeah. So that wall blank, no art?
No art. Because it's already got some issues with a big vent at the bottom, with the Nest device. We don't want to draw attention to something that's already visually cluttered with things that aren't interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're just going to let that recede into the background.
Well, I will find some paint eventually and fix that. But yeah, no, I knew that bird was too high. The other one I thought seemed just, I don't know, kind of right sort of area. But I could at least tell that one is breaking many rules.
Yeah, they're flying way too high. And once you do it the diagonal, you're going to have to redo the math that I told you. So basically the center point of both pieces, the lowest point and the highest point of the other bird, would be at 60.
Man, some algebra shit going on now. Okay. I'm going to ask you to do it like a quick diagram, make sure I got that right, and I will move those birds.
Right. Or, you can hold them up, take a couple of pictures, and I can let you know. Or you can give me, I think I already have the measurement of the wall. Give me the exact measurements of the bird, and I can drop it in. But yeah. Then cool. I think it's really going to fill that wall beautifully. I would probably even recommend that you get the plant stand first.
Yeah, and figure out where that's going to go.
Then we'll see where the negative space is. We'll see which one you went with. I think that's typically, I always start with all the furniture first. I don't hang the art till the very end.
Well, that will be what I do. There's also a new question since when you first designed the room.
Yeah.
My husband may be getting a work from home position, so he may be moving out his desk from that room.
Great. I love it.
So what do I plop there?
So as you guys know, we floated the sofa in the center of the room, and then behind the sofa, but off in the corner, not directly behind, but at a diagonal, we put his desk because we don't want people looking at it when they're seated on the sofa. It could kind of be tucked away. When you first walk in, it's kind of in a corner over there. So
it's a terrible desk. He was emotionally attached to it, but it's a terrible desk.
It's a sentimental piece that is not stylish. So now you're going to have a big empty space, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is a living room. And I would first think about what functions do we need. It needs to be something that can fill the space, but nobody's going to sit back there. That's basically the naughty corner, right? I can't see the person on the couch. I can't really see the TV. It's very far. I'm just excluded.
It's the cat timeout zone.
The cat timeout zone, or it's a perfect place for some. Now, I've only seen like 2 of these because otherwise a stylish cat tree is an oxymoron, but there's like a couple of them that are really neat.
Oh, that's an interesting idea.
But this is a big area, and I feel like a cat tree might too closely mimic the plant stand in terms of those branches and landing pads. I would be more inclined to do a bookcase.
Or like an open, what's the etagere or something?
Well, etagere typically doesn't have a back. It's typically just shelves that maybe don't even have sides, and they hold tchotchkes. And you've already got floating shelving on the same wall as the TV.
I'll finally get around to unplugging that one, taking it down. I just kind of...
You know what? I don't mind them.
Oh, really?
When I first saw the floating shelving that was in the brick, my first reaction was, let's take it down. This is a rental. You didn't make that choice. And I don't love floating shelves. But once you put the whole room together, I think they're kind of interesting.
Okay.
I would leave those. And instead, I also want something bulkier back there because right now it's housing a 4-foot desk, which has a depth. I mean, you just have a lot of space. If you needed
so more weight there.
More visual weight. So maybe it could be a wide bookcase. Maybe it could be a bar, but you don't need that.
We already have too many bars.
It could be, that's a really good problem. It could be a leaning mirror. We need something with gravitas, but you don't have any function for that space. So I basically have to fill it with something that could look like it's providing a function because this wall is massive.
Yeah.
And reflecting the light on this side could be an interesting choice.
Or I could get like a giant T-Rex statue. That might go there.
I think you should continue with the bird theme, frankly. Get a pterodactyl instead.
Yes, there we go.
But yeah, I'm open. And sometimes, even though this is such a big area that it could look conspicuously empty, sometimes I like to have an empty zone where I can evolve. You guys just moved in. Right now, your needs are shifting because he may be working from home. I think you're going to find a use for it in time. I don't love to fill something just to fill it.
So like the space behind the couch, like I didn't anticipate using it the way we do use it. But we are now because it's there. So that kind of makes sense just to see how we end up naturally hanging out in those places and go from there.
Well, and that made me think of something actually. If you wanted to, you could spin that credenza that's now essentially a sofa table. You could spin it and put it on that wall where the desk was currently and put a significant piece of art above that. Now, that wall still is empty. I don't like it. I think it just caused a couple of problems because, the other thing that I like to think about and the other problem, quote unquote, with this room is that everything is at that 3-foot high level.
Yeah.
What we're looking for is that contrast. We don't want all medium-sized plants and we don't want all medium-sized furniture. We do need some pieces that have some height so that your eye visually undulates around the room. Now, you do have the floor lamp behind the sofa, which is helpful to add some height. But I think a bookcase, I think a leaning mirror, something that will draw our eye up over there feels pretty essential. Now, I have a question. That lamp in the corner,
under the bird?
Yeah. Where'd that come from?
eBay.
Yeah. Okay, so it's a photographer's lamp, which is on a tripod base and has a very directional bulb, meaning that there's no shade and it will give kind of a spotlight effect versus giving, ambiance in terms of that filtered lighting. The reason I don't like it is because it's brown and the brick behind it is brown and the floating shelves on the brick are brown and it's just like brown town. And then you've got the bar stools on the pass-through that are also like a brown, it's not a tripod, it's a quad pod base. It's just really bugging me. Can we move it?
I can move it.
Anywhere.
Else. I'll move it to that blank spot if the desk goes.
Well, no, I don't want it in this room.
Oh, you move it anywhere not here in the good room.
Yeah, there might be a closet it would look good in. That's my nice way.
So, the reason we got it is because it looks like a submarine light. So the reason we got it had nothing to do with design whatsoever. And
more to do with submarines. Well, and I actually like these lamps and have recommended these lamps in certain circumstances. For some reason, I just had a very strong reaction to it in this room. And I can't quite explain it. Speaking of strong reactions, see, you find little details in cases and I find little details in rooms that I just want to pick apart until I can understand what was the motive. But in this case, I think the motive was just a lack of understanding because the bar stools at the pass-through lip, we need one more.
Another bar stool?
Yeah. Now, were they sold as a set of two?
I cannot remember. I think so, though.
Because it looks like there's too few. And based the mathematical measurement for that is the length of the peninsula, the length of the bar, the length of the overhang. You divide it by 18 to 22 inches, and that's how many stools you should have. So if we use
there's way more math in design than I thought there'd be.
It's all math. It's all math or geometry, and it's kind of what I love about it. And I didn't even love math, but it's all math. It's all numbers, proportions. It's easy math. But it's all math. Now, any other questions for me? You had a rug question.
Oh, yeah, that the rug of lies.
The rug of lies. So you ordered something online. This is a common tale of woe. Please share it with our listeners.
Well, there's that big blank spot that we hang out on. I wanted a rug there because that's where I'll sit on the floor there sometimes. So, a rug sounded good. And I did not have Betsy's guidance. So, I was going alone. Like, I got this. I have learned much from Betsy. I totally got this down. And I decided yellow. That could be wrong. I'm not convinced I'm right there. But yellow is what I decided. So I looked for a yellow rug online. And I found one pretty cheap that was, I thought, a goodish size. And it was yellow and pretty simple. Kind of, it probably doesn't match at all. But in my mind, it could have matched. So I ordered it, and I'm like, okay, cool, I have a yellow rug here. I get it. The thing is, like, it's white. The whole yellow thing was just a ruse to make me buy it.
It's really hard to tell online exactly what you're going to get. You really want to read reviews, and if there are no reviews, you really want to write a review. When you get
You're like, don't buy this rug if you want a yellow rug.
That's right. You want to spread the word and be like, this rug wasn't yellow. I think of it as karma because I read so many reviews and they really help guide my decision making for my clients that whenever I have a free minute, I go online and write like 10 reviews of just random things I've used recently just to put that energy back out there. So if you go on these websites, you'll see little affordable interior design reviews because I like to put that good review karma out there. But yes, you got duped. This is not a yellow rug. And I wouldn't have even gone with yellow. You say, I didn't have Betsy. I'm right here. I'm just a podcast away, Susan. The reason I wouldn't have done...
You were close to the sun. I thought I knew the rules. I tried to do it myself and I was not ready yet.
Well, here's a little rule for you. The reason I wouldn't have done yellow is because your floors are kind of a honey. They're sort of a yellowish stain. And your walls are a cream, which can look a little bit yellow, especially because this area is flooded with sunlight. That's why the cats love it so much. You would want to cool this area down with a cooler tone. So this is the time to use that peacock blue.
Okay. So I was thinking like the rule would be like, don't have more blue. There's a lot of blue already. So the rug I got was not the one Betsy suggested. It was similar-ish, but it's much more bright, which is my weakness when it comes to this. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Because yours was much more mature looking.
I love this one. I was actually very excited by this one, and I'm glad you went with it.
Yeah. So I was thinking I have one bright blue rug. Don't add another bright blue rug?
Well, I would pull one blue from this because what you want to do is this rug is what they call these days like a vintage Persian inspired rug. It looks like a Persian rug that is old and vintage, but it is not. And then what they call it is over-dyed. So they've over-dyed it or dunked it in a vat of dye. That's just what it's supposed to look like. That is teal or blue. And what has happened is you actually get variations of that teal and blue, and then there's also threads of this rich mustard. Now, I would play with one of those blues because there's kind of a more royal blue and then there's a more tealy peacock blue.
Greenish.
That's right. So I would choose one and I would use that for the rug behind the sofa. And I would ideally choose something that has a different scale of pattern. So this has kind of a lot of frenetic detailing going on. So I might choose something that's more of a geometric trellis. Something that's a totally different energy in terms of visual pattern so that they don't compete. But also you can't really see one while you're on the other. Like when I'm sitting on the couch, I can't really see.
If you're walking in, you can see them both. Otherwise you can't.
Right. So I'm not so worried about it. But I just wouldn't want it to look like it matches the one that you already have in large format.
So use one of the colors, but don't match it beyond that.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, and then go
now,
with
what shape though?
Well, here we go. So you have a rectilinear space and it's strongly rectilinear. So you would not put a circle inside a rectangle. You would be left with too much negative space on either side.
Is that what design law is? Like they codified that somewhere? The design gods?
I've codified it in Affordable Interior Design, my new book that came out in February. I'm sure everyone has a copy by now, but if you don't, go to affordableinteriordesign.com. But yes, for $14.95, you will learn that whether it's a rug, whether it's a dining table, whether it's a plant, as we just talked about, if it's a rectilinear space, it needs to be a rectilinear or oval object that you put inside. If it is a square space, it can be a circular or square object that you put inside, but the square would be on a diagonal. So if you had a square dining room, you would use a circular dining table in that situation, or you would use a square dining table on a diagonal.
Okay, so stick with rectilinear and...
That's right. So you would do a runner style, and it's going to be even narrower than this one is because you're going to have that plant stand, and I would not want the rug to be half on, half off the plant stand because I don't want wibble wobbling of those aloe plants.
Yeah. So a runner style that would fit there pretty easily, I think.
That's right. And it would go in between the credenza and the front of the plant stand. Now, if you wanted to go crazy, and most renters do need to go crazy and put carpet on 80% of their floor. But if you did want to go crazy, that area that's being vacated by your husband's desk, if we were to draw a line around it, basically from the opening of the hallway to where the end of his desk is now, that may be somewhat of a square.
And if it's a square, I can do a circle?
There you go.
All right.
You could put a cute little circular rug over there, and then you could put some kind of wacky cat tree on top or something else. I sure wish you needed, I don't know. You don't need anything. You have so many rooms.
I know. It's amazing. I went from a really tiny space before to this big space, and it's amazing.
Yeah, because
also now I have stuff before it was always I can't add anything more at all because there's nowhere literally for it to go. Now it's there's tons of space. Where is it going to go?
Right. No, that can be a problem. But like I said, we don't have to solve every issue. We can leave some issues unresolved and they will reveal themselves over time. And that's what I would do. That's
the good part of design law, at least. There are these rules that you have to follow, but there's no requirement right now, the second you fix it.
That's right. But I am so impressed with what you have fixed right now this second. Before we sign off, are there any other questions that I didn't answer?
I'm sure if you went to my house, you'd be Susan, you have 100 questions you should be asking me right now.
Well, based on these pictures, I think you've done an amazing job. I actually expected a little bit more of a challenge on my rules, but you've really bent to my will, and I'm so impressed.
Yeah, mostly. So my instinct for anything is just to add tons of color. My home office, which Betsy will never be able to see ever because she would not be my friend anymore. I have just put all type, it's like a unicorn exploded. And I'm fine with that because only I see it. So for the living room, it is still bright and colorful. And I was I tend to go for like the bright, like turquoise couch, like instinctually. But Betsy convinced me successfully that having the gray couch and chair is the way to go. And I did it. And it still looks all bright and cheery.
Yeah, that foundation of neutrals is something that you can build upon. You can layer your color. You will not feel like you're missing out. FOMO.
It doesn't feel gray, and it's very gray.
Yeah, Roy G. Biv FOMO, I call that. But
I have constant Roy G. Biv FOMO.
I want to have that rainbow, whatever. Yeah, so I am also a recovering Roy G. Biv FOMO addict, and my customers, my clients have beat me down over time. Betsy, I don't want to use that much color. Betsy, what are you doing with that much color? If you walk into my living room, it's like a stoplight. It's red, yellow, and green, and it's pretty bright like that. So I myself have to tone it down because the problem that creates is that it's not sophisticated. It's fun, it's lively, it's vibrant, but it's very hard to make that rainbow explosion sophisticated.
Yeah.
And that's why I have to even temper my own work. Some of my designs are not as sophisticated as my other designers because I love to go bold. I love to be a little bit crazy with my patterns. I used to have a philosophy or rule that you needed to have one very ugly thing in every room. I have since let that...
That's my lamp. That's the lamp.
That's the lamp. And it's maybe also that strange reindeer in the background on the credenza, which I didn't bring up, but I can't quite stop looking at him.
My brass animals... You have to fight from me.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I see another brass animal on that.
Oh, there's like four of them, like scattered around.
You know, whenever you have a collection like that, it's safety in numbers. You should group them instead because sprinkled around, they look cluttery and together they look cohesive.
Make an army of brass animals and together their might will like balance out their whatever's wrong with them.
Well, and that way, if you choose not to see them, like I might if I came over for a cocktail at one of your mini bars, I could just not look in that direction. It's not like they're everywhere.
If you come over, I'm moving that deer in front of where you're sitting.
Well, it has been such a delight talking to you. It's been such a delight getting to know you because I've been such a fan for so long, so in awe of your talents that it's so fun to have you be interested in my talents.
And it has been really interesting. I mean, I'm still pretty terrible at it, as those pictures show. But for me, it's been really interesting to try to learn a field that's so far afield from anything I know and to like learn the basics of it.
And
even
vice versa.
I often disagree with them.
And vice versa. And I try and disagree with the law and the things that you guys talk about on Undisclosed. And, you know, there's just no getting past certain...
I know I'm wrong about the design. I'm just going to keep being wrong
just
with a couple
of things. Yeah.
Yes.
No. And that's your prerogative. That's what makes your home your special home. Now, speaking of the law, speaking of Undisclosed, I think you guys just started a brand new season. Is that right?
We did. So Amelia, who was involved in our Freddie Gray series a couple years back, is covering the case of Keith Davis. If you've not heard of it, it's another Baltimore case. He is about to go up to trial again, probably this summer. It'd be his fifth trial in the past couple of years because they keep trying to convict him and keep getting a hung jury, and they keep on trying. So it is a fantastic series, an awful case, but you should check it out on Undisclosed.
That's devastating and a mess, and also so admirable. I really admire the work that you guys do. If you haven't checked out Undisclosed, the podcast, you must start with season 1 if you're a serial fan, but don't stop there because they have so many addendums. They have John Cryer on. It's just awesome, the work you're doing. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for all your help.
And when you're ready to tackle that unicorn office, I am here for you. No judgment.
We'll see. I may just add more colors to it and call it a day.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. Well, you can lead a unicorn to water, but you can't make her drink. I think that's what we're going to leave on, guys. You've asked for it, and we have answered the call. For years, you've been saying, Betsy, you're talking about all these great design concepts, but we can't visualize them. You're describing the picture that the listener sent in of their problem, and we wish we could see that picture too. After all, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and I do my best to describe them, but there's nothing like seeing it for yourself. And that's why Affordable Interior Design, the podcast, now has a YouTube channel. Not only do we have a YouTube channel where you could see recordings and clips of these podcast episodes, we also have an Instagram, a Facebook, and so many other exciting things. You should check it out. Head over to affordableinteriordesign.com/links. Once again, affordableinteriordesign.com/LINKS. Links. And when you go there, you will see links to our YouTube page, our Instagram page, our Facebook page, and more. Please check it out, follow and subscribe so you can see everything I'm talking about. A big thank you to our amazing producer, Catherine Heller, to Aton and the MCR House Band, and to Affordable Interior Design, the sponsor of this podcast and the premier place to get an amazing look on a budget. Check out affordableinteriordesign.com. If you guys love the show, the very best way to support us is by spreading the word. tell your friends, or write us an awesome review on iTunes. So until next week, guys, thanks so much for joining us, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.